What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down what's going on with more data coming out for tomorrow and Donald Trump's tariffs, which could cause more volatility for these markets. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. We deposits $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, for today's video, the format is a bit different because I'm actually traveling. I don't have access to a table right now, so I can't turn on my webcam. If you guys want to see what I look like, just watch my previous video. But anyways, I will continue that format in the future, going into tomorrow and beyond. Just today, I have to travel. I can't really do that. So we're going to have to go back to the old format just for now, but tomorrow I will be going back to, the way I did it yesterday. Anyways, so as far as the market's going, okay, I want to say something very, very important. The market saw lots and lots of selling for many, many days. We got 6 straight red days on SPY, and we had a very, very interesting pattern, right? We had these patterns where we dumped really hard in the morning, then we tried to rebound towards the end of the day. We dumped really hard in the morning, we tried to gap up, then dumped. And we did the same thing over and over again. We dumped really hard, rebounded a little bit, dumped again, rebounded a little bit, dumped again. Now we're trying to rebound. So why am I saying this? Well, there is a very, very common occurrence in SPY where at the end of the days, we do see somewhat of a relief move. But then as the days open up, we tend to see a lot of downside. And we're going to be watching to see if that affects the way we end up moving for the week. So in this case, it's very simple. If SPY could break past our 20 EMA, which is basically 594, there's going to be an attempt to get back up towards this 598 area. However, if we can't hold this, I'm looking for 590 is the main support. Then we have 585, which is where this next support is from right over here. I'll be watching those supports as well in case that ends up failing. So which way are we going to go? I'm going to give you guys some more insights about this, and I'll talk about the charts in a lot more detail. Just know this, on Friday, we had a very, very monstrous day. We saw Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Google, big tech stocks exploding. We saw finance in the green, and the majority of stocks saw a nice rebound. We were due for this after so much selling, but the question is, how long will this rebound last? When is there going to be another big leg down? I'll give you guys more insights about this. Now, tomorrow is going to be very interesting. It's going to be Monday, March 3rd, 2025. And by the way, happy March. We're now in another month. We're in the 3rd month of 2025. Time is just flying. But if we go back to the chart and we go back to our data, you have to remember that there tends to be lots of volatility at particular times. So at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, 15 minutes after the stock market opens, we have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI coming out. That's going to likely cause more volatility, so just keep that in mind. And then we also have at 10 o'clock a.m., that's 30 minutes after the stock market opens, we have the ISM manufacturing employment, new orders and prices data coming out. What's going to be very important are these two right here, new orders and prices. This will give us more data on inflation. And then new orders is very forward looking for how demand is looking. So that's going to be very important for manufacturing. Look for lots of volatility for the first 15 and 30 minutes of market open for tomorrow. And then on top of this, for earnings, just keep in mind there's not really much coming out. Much of the earnings are going to be quite minor. We have Target and Best Buy and AutoZone on Tuesday with CrowdStrike. And then for Wednesday, we have Foot Locker. And then Thursdays when we have Costco, and that's pretty much it. So keep that in mind. Now, there is one more thing that's coming out that's going to be Donald Trump's tariffs. So let's actually talk about this. With Donald Trump's tariffs, I just want to say that, so this is very interesting. Donald Trump said on Wednesday, okay? On Wednesday of last week, he said that he wants the Mexican and Canadian tariffs to be delayed until April 2nd. And then on Thursday, the day after that, he ended up changing it. He's saying that they're going to be coming on March 4th. So he did make that change, and that is what is causing some confusion. I just want to clarify that. As of right now, this is the latest data that's come out. We haven't really seen new updates from Donald Trump about this as of his last announcement. And so far, this is what the schedule is looking like. So for Canada and Mexico, we're looking at 25% tariffs and then 10% on Canadian petroleum on March 4th, which is 2 days from now on Tuesday. That's what the schedule is suggesting. And then also at the same time, Donald Trump wants to impose an additional 10% tariff on China on March 4th. So that's going to put us up to about 20% on China. So what's interesting about this is that I don't know until it's finally time to impose them. We don't know for sure until it's finally time. And why is that? Well, the reason for that is because Donald Trump could be using this for a negotiation tactic. He could be trying to convince these countries to do things very differently, and there could be different intentions involved, right? Donald Trump is trying to be strategical with this. You have to keep that in mind, and that we don't know for sure until they officially impose these. Now, could there be lots of fear leading up to this? Yes, there is a lot of fear in the markets still, and I think the market will still try to relieve itself, at least to some extent. So we'll have to see what happens by Tuesday. Does Donald Trump delay these, or does he officially impose them? We still have to wait and see just to be safe, because he did kind of change his word on Wednesday compared to like Thursday. So we'll see. As of right now, he's supposed to do that. We're supposed to impose these. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Then after that, we have the steel and aluminum ones coming out for March 12th. Then we have lumber and other products coming out for April 2nd. So we'll see what Donald Trump's intention is, what his plan is. Is this just for negotiation, or is he going to officially impose these tariffs? If he does impose them, we'll see if that causes another big move. That's the reason why it's a little tricky to predict this. It depends on what Donald Trump says, so just keep that in mind. And then on top of that, right now the market's very fearful. There's a lot of fear right now making up the majority of sentiment. We were at extreme fear for some time, which makes me suspect there might be a little bit of relief coming. We are due for that to some extent. Momentum is extremely fearful. This is trying to bounce off our 125 daily moving average. One thing about the S&P 500 is we do have a very strong support right there. We did bounce off this historically right over here, and every time we've been hovering above our 125 daily moving average, we did bounce off of it. There's a good chance we try to bounce right over here. And then on top of that, the put to call option ratio is going up like crazy. We'll see if this comes down a bit, if the market gets some relief, and then if this ends up exploding. I think based off the level we're seeing, especially when you look at our macro trends, you will see that we're not technically at a full bottom for the markets. Maybe this is a temporary bottom and the market sees some relief, but then the ultimate bottom is not really in yet. There could be a much bigger dump coming in the future because of recessionary fears, because of more tariffs and factors like that. So I'm going to talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. This will make perfect sense very, very soon. The VIX, okay, it's neutral. It was trying to remain elevated, but we're going to see how this responds to this resistance. It's still at a very, very key level. One more thing about crypto, though, is Donald Trump did say something very important. He is talking about the creation of a national reserve for a variety of cryptocurrencies, and that led to a big bounce in crypto. So that's a good sign so far for crypto. I just wanted to call that out. So, what do I think about the markets with these tariffs coming out and all this news? Did the market bottom? Well, my answer is not entirely. I think that this could be a temporary bottom if we do hold this low. And what you want to see is, see how we've been making lower highs, lower lows, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low over and over again. We still have a lower high right here. We have to see if we can try to break past that and try to go a little bit higher like this. That could be a sign that we're about to get like some kind of temporary bounce. But then even if you get the bounce, right, that does not mean we're in the clear. We could always just turn back down and eventually break through this low, which is what's very probable. So this is like the move I'm talking about when I talk about how we have like a temporary bottom here, some temporary relief, and then a bigger move down. That's like what I'm talking about in a nutshell. But don't worry about the levels. I'm just giving you guys an example. Let's now talk about this in a lot more detail. So for SPY, if we lose 590 tomorrow, you're going to be looking for us to get closer to 585. If we hold above 594, we could attempt to fill this imbalance towards 598. Those are going to be some very, very key levels. Now, what I suspect is going to happen is, because we had such a bullish day, or a very, very bullish close on Friday, we may attempt to go a tiny bit higher. We might push a few points higher, but then here's the problem. We have these manufacturing numbers coming out about 30 minutes after the stock market opens. So we'll have to see what the reaction is. Do we launch higher? Do we get some kind of like a dip? What's very probable is we might see some kind of dip move, a little bit of a pullback just to grab liquidity. And if we can make a higher low, if we don't lose this low at 583, if we could hold above like 590, even like 588 in that range, then there's a good chance that this is just a temporary dip. Then we try to get some kind of bounce again. And then that could be, like an inverse head and shoulders that's trying to form right here. I am eyeing this as the most likely possibility, a left shoulder ahead of the right shoulder. But this also depends on Donald Trump's tariffs. I'm not 100% sure about how that's going to go, so we'll have to see about that. But this is what is looking like to be the most probable move, at least thus far. There's so much bearish sentiment right now that makes me suspect that, there could be an upside move coming just temporarily, and then we'll see what the reaction is. But to start things off for tomorrow, we're going to likely try to push a little higher when we open. But then once the data comes out, we'll see if that causes some volatility, a little bit of a dip. That is very possible. We'll see, just to be safe. And then if we get some kind of dip, I don't want to see us lose this low. I don't want to see us get below this trend line right here, this new yellow trend line. I want to see us make a higher low. If we make a higher low, whether it's around that 590, depending on our fib level, so we can even measure this out. Depending on what you guys want to do, there's different ways you can actually look at this, but as long as you can make a higher low and we bounce off a very, very key fib level or whatever it is, guys, we're going to be completely fine. And this could attempt a rebound very, very quickly, right? That could be one of the most likely possibilities. If we lose this low, I turn very, very bearish. I think we're going to be dumping even more. As long as we try to hold this low, this could just be like a higher low before this market tries to bounce again. And we might be looking for some kind of rebound move as the market's trying to base. I say that based off the fact that we are forming a 4-hour PPO crossover. We have a possible inverse head and shoulders. And because we got so much downside without much relief, and the market could be trying to get that move. On the QQQ, it's the same thing essentially. Right? We don't want to see the QQQ do this. As you could tell, if you look at the QQQ, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Is this about to form a lower low? We don't want that to happen, right? If that happens, it's going to be a bad sign for us, right? We could be dipping all the way down to the lower levels. If we're bearish, you want to see us essentially lose the support around this like 497 area. And then we also have like, this low right here to be broken, taking us all the way down towards 495 or below. If we hit 495, I'm going to be very bearish on the QQQ. We're going to be dumping even more. I don't want that to happen, right? That's going to be a very, very big, telltale sign. As long as we hold 506, we're looking for an attempt to get up to about 513. That's going to be our 20 EMA. If that breaks, we're looking for 518 to 516 as our target zone. My gut tells me, okay, that we're attempting to reverse right here. We might push a little hard tomorrow morning towards our 20 EMA, then we might be looking for a dip move. This could happen during the pre-market, but if we open and we get a small dip, that would be completely normal. So we might get some kind of dip with all this manufacturing data that's coming out, because the last time manufacturing numbers came out, they weren't too good. And then as long as we don't lose this low, see where these wicks are. I don't want to see us lose this low. If we don't lose that low, we could be looking for a reversal, and we could be forming kind of like a cup and handle, and we could be attempting to get right back up. There's a good chance it's going to happen if we don't lose that low. That's what I'm looking for going into the next couple of days even. So please keep that in mind. Yes, this may also depend on what Donald Trump says. So we'll see if Donald Trump gives us any of these tariff announcements. He may also move the markets, so that's something I can't predict. But this is what I'm looking for as the most likely technical move. On the Russell 2000, the bearish case would be us essentially losing support right here at this like 211 area to start dumping below this trend line. So when you zoom out, you guys can see we have this trend line. This is now going to be acting as our support. Notice that we broke through this, we bounced, and now we're trying to like bounce very close to it again. We also have our 20 EMA's resistance around that 215.96 area. So if we're bullish, you want to essentially see this. You want to see us push a little bit higher towards the 20 EMA, reject, make a higher low right here around 213, then try to break out like this towards our imbalance up here around 217. We'll be watching that as like the more bullish case. If we have an inverse head and shoulders, that's going to be a good sign, at least for us as well, if we see a move like this. And then if you're bearish, instead of getting that higher low bounce, you want to see us essentially lose this low here. If that fails us, then we turn a lot more bearish. I am leaning a little bit more in favor of this, but this depends on Donald Trump's tariffs. But I do favor that we might see some relief just temporarily after so much downside the market's due for that. For ES, I like the setup. So here's the thing about ES, okay? ES was basically trading in this channel like this, trading in the channel. We broke through it. We entered another channel. We tried to break out of it, then we rejected. But notice that we're holding the support quite well so far. So if we break this upper trend, we're going to be looking for a big break for the 6122s. There's a good chance it's going to be attempting that, but that's not a guarantee unless we get that break. We need to break this resistance to get that big break. We haven't really done that yet. So we're still in this channel technically on ES. We're forming a nice green bar. We actually filled this imbalance, which is a good sign. I would like to see this try to go a little higher for about 59.80, the resistance right here. And then if we return, we're going to be looking for our key fib level, depending on where we end up rejecting. And if we can make a higher low, I don't want to see this lose 58.50. As long as we hold above that, we could be looking for an attempt to get back up to this trend line, maybe even trying to break through that. That's going to be very, very probable. And then as far as the retracement goes, it depends on, sorry about that. It depends on this. How low do we end up going, at least from this key retracement area? So it depends on how high we go. I can't really draw this up perfectly, but if we go up to like that, it all depends. Then we're going to be looking for this retracement from here, but it depends on how high this ends up bouncing first off. So just keep that in mind. But that's going to be very, very key for us. So I'll be watching ES very, very closely when it comes to this move. That's going to be very key. As far as NQ goes, the same thing is going on. So it's trying to rebound a bit. I think it's going to be trying to test 21,000, but then it's going to be a very, very tough resistance. We might not break through that immediately. So I'm looking for 21,000. If we get a rejection move, I want to see us establish the same thing, a higher low. We want to see if we can try to knock loose 20,500. If we make a higher low, we could be attempting to get back up towards this resistance right here at 21,300, right? That's going to be another big level, very close to our 50 EMA. If we lose 20,500, we could be dumping a lot more, but if we make a higher low, we're looking for a bounce. So just keep that in mind. Excuse me. For Bitcoin, we're looking bullish, especially after the Donald Trump announcement about the crypto reserve. I'll be watching to see if we could break 94,000. If that breaks, we're looking for a big pump towards 98,000. So far, we're looking quite bullish. I do anticipate some upside. We'll see if we get a little rejection here to make a higher low before it continues to push for 100,000. Looks a bit more bullish now thanks to Trump's news. And so far, you guys can see how the market's trying to rebound. Nvidia looks a bit more bullish to me. I think that we might be testing this resistance around 126. I wouldn't be surprised if we go a little higher, test that, reject a bit, and then try to go a little higher like this. If we lose 120, I'm going to be a little bit more concerned, but we might be looking for some temporary relief because of the fact that we got decimated after earnings. Right, we got this big sell-off. We are due for a little bit of a bounce. I think that would be completely normal, especially because of this trend right here, as we have this like support zone around this like 15 to 17 area, which is where this likes to rebound. So I'll be watching that very, very closely. And I think there's a good chance if we try this. As long as Nvidia does not lose 115, I do favor that we could attempt to go higher, make a higher low, then continue to pump towards 126 plus. So just keep that in mind. For Tesla, I like the setup, but I just want to say that I do anticipate more downside for Tesla in the future. I don't think we're done yet with the major downside move. For the short term, however, it looks like it wants to bounce a little bit. It looks like it wants to be testing this resistance. So I think it's going to go a little hard to test this trend line around 300. So I think we push a bit higher. I don't know if we're going to break through this immediately. It might just initially fail, but then eventually, if we do break this, we could see some temporary relief. We have the Model Y refresh being launched, especially in China, so that could help some temporary relief come. But that does not mean we're in the clear yet. We could still see future downside after their earnings or other factors. There could be future downside coming with the new tariffs. We'll see about that. So just keep that in mind. For Apple, the same thing is going on essentially. So what's interesting about Apple is the fact that we have this yellow trend line acting as our support. We bounced off this many, many times. We're testing this previous resistance again. This is going to be around this 242 area. I'll be watching to see if we break through this. So we'll see if we get some kind of like downside move first to establish a higher low. That could be like right over here around 240 to 238. And then we could be looking for a rebound like this. It may not even make much of a low. It might just be like a small dip, but it looks resilient. It finally got the dip. It took a while for Apple to dip compared to the market. And now it's trying to be resilient, trying to bounce back up. So it could be looking for a comeback move. Another confluence is the fact that it's not just that, but it's also the fact that we have a gap to fill up here. We have these gaps that could attract us to the mid 240s. As long as we hold our trend line, I do favor that. However, if Apple loses 236, the trend line, I'm going to be bearish. So it depends if we can hold the trend line. We'll be watching this resistance right here to see if we break through or not. We might see a small dip and then a bounce like this as the most likely move. So keep that in mind. For Netflix, Netflix is looking for basically 985. If that breaks, I'm looking for essentially an attempt to get closer to our 50 EMA. This is forming like a double bottom. It does have some potential, but here's the deal with this, right? If we end up losing 953, I'm going to be a little bit more bearish. If we break past 985, I'm looking for a bounce, and I'm favoring that a little bit more. I think we test this resistance, we go a little bit higher, pull back a bit, and we want to see if we can make a higher low. Then we could be looking for a bounce like this for a temporary move up. We also have this trend line that could be retested as time goes on, this yellow trend line. I'll be watching that very, very closely. I think we will be testing that very, very soon. MSTR is the same setup. It looks a bit more bullish. Nice divergence that's forming here. It may try to see a little rebound. I think it goes a little higher for essentially, let me double check this, 264. Then we'll see if we reject to make a higher low to continue to push, but it's looking good so far. For Celsius, we got this downtrend. We're actually looking a little bit weaker. This depends, though, if we could hold this support right here around this 25 area. I think that's going to be very, very big. So look for 25, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. That's going to be very, very key for us. For Supermicro, we're technically making lower highs right here, but we're going to be watching around this 40 area to see if we break. If that fails us, we could be dumping all the way down towards the previous Resistance becoming support around this 37 area. It's still looking a little bit weak, but I do think it's due for a bounce, especially if Nvidia tries to push us. So we'll see this 37 to 40 area if this is tested. We'll see if we bounce off that. I do think that there's a good chance I might attempt that, but if we end up losing 37, I'm going to be a little bit more bearish. Palantir might push towards 87 to 90 in that range before it sees a very, very big amount of volatility, whether we break or reject. But look for a bit more upside for the time being. For Rivian, I'm looking for 11.96. If that breaks, we're looking for 12.5. If that rejects, we're going to be coming back down. So we'll see how this goes. So just give this some time. For SoFi, we're in the middle. We're going to be looking to see if we can break past 14.5. If that breaks, we have like a double bottom, and we're going to be looking for an attempt to get up to about 14.85. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if we make a higher low here and then try to go higher, but this does have some potential to get back up to about 14.89. As long as we don't end up losing like 13.8, I do favor that we might be making like a higher low and then continuing to push as the most likely case. For AMD, the same thing is going on. We need to see if this could base. We need to see if this could hold 100. I know it's trying to do that. If this holds 100, we're looking for an attempt to get back up closer to this trend line, if not to at least 104. So we'll see if 100 holds, give that some time. For others out there, we have ARM. ARM is technically on a bit of a downtrend here. I also think that we have this support. So we're looking for essentially 128. If this could hold, I'm looking for an attempt to get closer to like 137 before we see another rejection move. So it might push like this, and we'll see if it rejects. So give this some time. For coin is very much just range bound. We've been making lower highs and lower lows. However, I want to see if this could try to hold up. I think with the Donald Trump news about the crypto reserve that he's talking about is a very, very bullish. And I think that this is going to bounce very nicely. We'll see if we start off like this and we start pumping. If we gets back above 225, we're looking for a really, really nice rebound attempt. I think 230 could be coming, so it has a lot of potential. But I want to see it at least get back above 218, then 224. And this thing is going to be running very, very nicely. I see potential in this with that news. For Amazon, looks decent, but I do want to mention that there are further gaps for it to fill in the future. We'll see if we get some temporary relief to try to get closer to this trend line. I believe it's going to be a little flat, but there's going to be an attempt to get higher slowly. Look for an attempt to get close to about 215, a little dip, then maybe an attempt to test this trend line towards like the 217 area. Then we'll see if we get a rejection or not, but I do see some potential in this, at least in my opinion. For Meta, look at 671. If that breaks, we have this imbalance to fill it towards 683. If we end up losing 658, we're looking for a dip, so I am favoring upside a little bit more on this. If we could try to hold at least 658. If 658 fails us, I turn bearish. That's not going to be a good sign. I'm hoping that we end up forming a base here. We basically go higher. As long as we form a base here, this could slowly try to get back up towards these imbalances around the 680 area. So as long as that holds, we're going to be fine. For Microsoft, we're looking for an attempt for about 399 to 400. Might see a small bounce, and we'll see if you reject or not off that, but there's going to be some temporary relief coming. I think Google's going to try to relieve itself as well towards that 175 target. We are due for a little bit more of a bounce. For GameStop, for those who are interested, we're kind of flat right now, not really expecting a whole lot. We have our 20 EMA's resistance. Might see a small dip here before it tries to rebound, so like 14.5 could be coming. AMC might dip towards 3.25 before it tries to bounce. DJT may be testing 24.87. The VIX has supported 19.2, and we'll have to see if that holds. If that doesn't hold, it's not going to be a good sign. We'll see if we get a temporary bounce off of that if the manufacturer numbers cause a small dip in the markets first before we see a move like this. That is what could be happening, but I don't think the big move in the VIX is done yet. I think we will eventually push to the 30s in many, many weeks. But for the time being, there could be a downwards move just to prepare us for a much larger spike later on in like April. Just keep that in mind, guys. The downside move is not done yet for the markets, but there might be some temporary relief if we end up holding and making a higher low. As far as the 10-year goes, this is still looking a bit more bearish, which is a good sign for the Fed. The 10-year and also the dollar is looking a little bit more bullish. We'll see if this shifts or not. We're at resistance very close to about this 107 area, so we'll give that some time. Anyways, that is it for my video. I just want to say that the market is trying to show some signs of relief, and I think there's a good chance we get that temporarily. Let's just see if the market could make a higher low. As long as it does that, we're going to be in a good sign. We're going to be in a good place, if anything. And then that's just a temporary move I'm talking about, right? It could just be a temporary push, temporary pump. And in the future, as we get to April, there could be another big dump coming, another correction, okay? But for now, we're seeing an attempt to see temporary relief. That's what my video is mainly talking about. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. I thank you all I wish you guys a very, very good weekend. I'll be back tomorrow morning with another upload. And once again, we will change the format very soon. Have a good day, guys, and peace out.